when I was thinking about this and writing about it, I was really impacted by the realization of how challenging it can be for a family to maintain connection and healthy relationships if they're also struggling with the stresses of poverty. And so I guess the first thing to think about is the normal ups and downs that we have as families. I mean, life tosses things at us, and we have days when we're feeling more impatient with each other, maybe more discouraged about things. And this is just how it goes in for all of us at various times. And then if you add in the factor of sustained poverty, so not just a low season financially, but you're looking at a family who not only is going through the normal ups and downs of family life, and life in general, but they're dealing with sustained poverty, where just month to month, year to year, they can barely make ends meet. Then those normal ups and downs become larger. They're exaggerated, and so not only are you worried about how to pay the next bills, but a lot of your time and energy is going toward trying to figure out how to prevent shutoff notices, how to find additional resources to cover all of your bases, and that can take a lot of time. And so then, if that's your world, then you have less time to be with your family. You have less energy to really be present with your family. It's a lot more difficult when you are exhausted because you've been spending hours trying to figure out how you're going to pay multiple bills next month or next week, and yet your children still need to be fed and cared for. And so just that, the basic family relationships can be put under an awful lot of strain because there's not much time and energy left to maintain them in an ideal way. All of this, if we are struggling with poverty and continually not having enough to meet the basic necessities, let alone some of the conveniences of life, often what happens is feelings of inadequacy, of failure, of maybe resentment, of fear about what's coming down the road. Those feelings are triggered. And for all of us, when we have those kinds of feelings triggered, we have a tendency to default to whatever our personal coping mechanisms are. So, and often those default coping mechanisms are not so healthy. And so, we may find ourselves resorting to more zoning out time just to avoid thinking about things. Maybe it's unhealthy dependency on substances or on food, just maybe a general avoidance of certain things in life. And so when those things are triggered, again, we're going to be less available to those family relationships in healthy ways. But if we're talking about a family that's dealing with poverty, well, then probably somebody else in the family, a spouse, a partner, children, other adults living in that home are having feelings triggered too. Mm-hmm. So then you have a family where multiple people are having these feelings of inadequacy and fear and failure and feeling incompetent or feeling angry with one another because somebody doesn't seem to be holding up their end of things. Those are extra strains on family. So again, the family's being impacted. And it's not that families can't work through these things. But those are a reality that's in the picture. Mm-hmm. So then maybe at that point, when you realize that some unhealthy interactions are happening at home, you might be considering some resources that you could draw on to help alleviate some of the stress, help yourselves be healthier. But resources often cost money, and they always cost time. Mm-hmm. So you may not really have time to sit down and read another article on how to be more patient with your children or how to provide time when you don't have time. You may not have the money to go to a counselor, even if you desperately want to. Mm-hmm. And again, we're talking lack of financial resources being a big part of that picture. So you're at a disadvantage, right? Yeah. And then another way that poverty and the family unit kind of interact with one another is when children grow up in a home where the parents are continually stressed, and so maybe they're continually reacting to situations with impatience or anger, or maybe not so much that, but they're just less present with their kids, and not because they want to be, but because all of their time and energy is going towards survival. Children in those situations grow up usually with their own sense of self-worth and of feeling loved and seen and cared for, damaged to one degree or another. And they've also observed their parents resorting to unhealthy coping skills. And I want to be careful here. I'm not saying that if families are in poverty, the only way they're going to get through is by being stressed out, and that nobody in poverty has healthy coping skills. I don't mean that. It's just that commonly, when these stresses happen day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, this is the result. And then those children, if they're growing up in those environments, they've learned some unhealthy perspectives and unhealthy ways of coping. And so then it becomes a generational issue. And boy, just out of compassion for people's worth and wanting to see people thrive, it makes sense that we find ways to make it more possible for people to even as they're in stressful situations financially, not also be experiencing emotional and relational poverty at the same time. Yeah.